I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole. Deanne, you're more than welcome to come up if you're the presenter. You're more than welcome to come up to the podium. Welcome. Just state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Deanne Healy. Do you want my home address or work address?
Whichever you feel more comfortable.
2 Mass. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here representing Peabody Main Streets, and usually twice a year we like to come before the council and just give you an update on what our committee has been working on, our organization. But before we get started, I did just want to kind of address a couple of points. This issue tends to come up with, we hear a little bit of feedback from some residents that they don't always understand that we're a nonprofit organization and a separate entity from the city. And also that we're an all-volunteer group with really no direct funding. So it's not something that the city, Peabody Main Streets is not something that the city is actually funding. And I say that because we hear some concerns that there's too much focus on downtown as far as the city is concerned. And so the reality is that I want to remind everybody, it's really not a ward issue, that affects 1, 2, or 3 wards that abut downtown, but it's really a city issue. Because the vibrancy or the perception of the city is really formed by the vibrancy of your downtown. So we should all have a vested interest in what happens downtown and moving things forward. And I would just ask that especially the ward councilors, as you talk to your residents in your ward, remind them that much of the money that gets spent on projects downtown comes in the way of grants that are for specific purposes. And a lot of times people don't understand that you can't take money that's set aside or was given for a park and use it towards another purpose. So I just find lately that there's a lot of confusion about that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. The premise behind Peabody Main Streets is that it's made up of a lot of small projects, small businesses, small developments that add up to a big impact over time. We are divided and work in 3 groups, which is design, promotions, and economic vitality. And what I handed out to you was a quick infographic that kind of just highlights all of our achievements from our inception in 2013 when the group was first formed by Mayor Betancourt to review the RKG report on Main Street in the brownfield sites downtown. We prioritize those recommendations and have been using that framework to work against for the past couple of years. And then in 2016, we actually...
Mr. President, if I may, sorry.
Yeah.
Motion to receive the flyer Ms. Healy is talking about.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Dee. Sorry.
Yep. So, and anybody else, the flyer is actually posted on our Facebook page and on livepeabody.com, so anybody can see it there as well. So so as I said, 2016 we actually formed Peabody Main Street, and that really just provided the framework for us to continue working in a more efficient method. It separated our group, our whole entire group, into 3 working groups, which was design, promotions, and economic vitality. So from the design standpoint, this past year, they've really been working on working with the planning for the Central Street revitalization plan, the traffic realignment plan there, and making sure that the look and feel of that matches downtown, so that as you're entering downtown, you kind of know when you've arrived in Main Street. As well, they're working on the lighting on Main Street proper, changing out the Cobra headlights. One of the things that they have determined over the past couple of years is even though people think downtown seems dark, it's actually too light. And the Cobra heads will be replaced with the black wrought iron lamp posts to match the rest of the antique lamp posts and the ones we're using in the square. And they'll be a little bit more directed, the lighting down onto the street. So the other benefit of that is this year we're hoping to bring back on the table is looking at lighting the trees on Main Street. So some of you might have remembered when we first finished the project on Main Street with the lane reconfiguration and the sidewalks were redone, new trees were planted. That year we did try to light up the trees, but they were very tiny. And so there wasn't a whole lot of lights to really see. They're solar-driven lights, and we found also there were some challenges with some sides of the street with how much sun they actually received in order to power the lights. But now that the trees have kind of grown and matured, there's an opportunity to take another look at that. Plus, the new Cobra headlights will actually have light outlets, power outlets on them that we can plug into. So it gives us some more opportunities there. For the promotions group, this year we took over the farmers market and morphed it into a pop-up market on Leather City Common. We got a lot of great feedback on it. We actually had been approached by a couple of surrounding communities, Danvers and Beverly, that they really liked our venue, they liked our format, they wanted to partner with us possibly. And as we kind of took a look at the pros and cons of doing that, one of the things we really realized was, Peabody as a city got into the farmers market kind of late in the game, and so that there are more mature markets out there. So it's very difficult at this point in time to try to move to a more prominent date, like a Thursday, a Saturday, or a Sunday, because those vendors are already committed to well-established markets. So in 2019, we're going to try something a little bit different. We know we have an audience that comes down to Leather City Commons all summer long for the summer concert series, and we know that we've had much success with Pizza Fest in attracting people to come down in conjunction with the summer concert there. So each week during the summer concert, we will be adding several vendors, a couple of food trucks, an ice cream truck, a couple of things like that, probably 6 or 7, switch them out each week so there's something new, but that allows the people who are coming down to the concert to buy some food and beverage and experience something different in addition to the concert. So we're going to try something different. It was not such a great year for our pop-up pubs. Mother Nature did not like us this year. But with that said, we just posted the 2019 calendar and just announced the return of the annual Ice Bar on March 2nd, and that was just earlier this week, and we already have 2,000 people interested in coming to it, so stay tuned. The other thing we did this year was we actually started doing some advertising. So we had ads in the North of Boston Visitors and Convention Bureau Guide, and we also had an ad in the East Coast Traveler Guide, which targeted bus tour groups. So that's kind of something that we're going to continue to do. We're doing it again this year. We're going to have a larger ad. And we're really trying to make sure that we're in the same places that our other surrounding communities are represented as well. And then the big 2019 initiative for promotions, in addition to our events, is really where, in conjunction with the city, we are taking on a new map project. So it will be a joint promotional material that includes a map of the city, but also a map of just downtown. And it will be, the idea is to place it in destinations that are at least 60 minutes or 60 miles from Main Street to attract outside visitors to downtown. So everything that we have learned has said that you can't have a successful downtown until you start attracting visitors from an hour away. So that's going to be our one big initiative this year. And in addition to that, we are working with the Peabody Cultural Collaborative to bring a pop-up children's museum downtown. We tried to have it on Main Street. There just was not a suitable spot, so we are very happy that the city was able to lend us the George Peabody Museum to use for a couple of months, so starting the last week of March to the last week of June. And the idea behind the Children's Museum, which we're doing with a grant from the Essex County Community Foundation, is that it'll give us that opportunity to kind of test out the idea. Will people come? Will they pay any money? How far will they travel to get here? And that will give us some data to decide whether or not we want to move forward and try to pursue something more permanent down the road at a downtown destination. And then last but not least, economic vitality. So that group is responsible for looking at reaching out to developers and private investors to invest downtown, attracting businesses to relocate here. And so this past year, $27,000 in Lease It Local grants were distributed. That was money we received from Mass Development, and that resulted in 3 new businesses coming downtown. So that would be the Create and Escape DIY workshop, Granite Coast Brewery, and the one that was just approved was Jovi Boutique, which is a consignment shop. And the part about the Lease It Local grant was that was really intended to bring in a broader base of businesses down here. We know we have a great restaurant base, we have a great strong service base, but we really needed some more type destination retail type businesses to kind of get a well-rounded mix down here. So that was very successful. That committee also held its first developer and investor forum. We had over 100 real estate professionals, commercial developers, property owners down here to see a presentation about what Main Streets has been involved in, what the city has been doing downtown, really to kind of get them excited about the prospect of investing downtown. We got a lot of great feedback from that. And there's no lack of interest in people wanting or interested in pursuing having a business downtown. But that leads us to a couple of issues, and we kind of keep coming up against this, and I throw it out here tonight because I think it's incumbent upon the City Council to really take a look at it. There's 2 issues really that I see. Biggest issue, zoning needs to be taken a look at, and the parking issue needs to be put back on the table. When I talk about zoning, sometimes there are things that are just preventing developers who want to come in and do a project, and the zoning just doesn't allow it. And it makes it difficult for them to want to buy a building not knowing whether or not they're going to get the approval to do it. So sometimes it's as simple as a height restriction. And, a lot of these buildings are old. Once you start touching them, they need elevators. And from an economic standpoint, from a bank financing standpoint, to make a project feasible, it may need an extra floor to justify the cost of installing an elevator so that it will be profitable, so the bank will lend to the developer. So it really all goes kind of full circle. So it's something that we need to take a look at. I believe it was last year, some amendments were made to the parking requirements that go along with the building. So when I talk about parking, it's not about adding additional parking, it's not about garages or anything. It's really about the issue of how many parking spaces are required per unit. And many of the communities you see, they're really they're really reducing the number of requirements, and we don't have any place to put cars. We can't develop any new parking lots. And frankly, what the trend is with people moving downtown is they're giving up their cars, at least, or they don't have cars to begin with. So that really is an issue. So, especially when we're looking at developing buildings and you want them to put a new facade on, according to the current restriction, once you change the envelope of the building, the old requirements go into effect. So that is something that is impeding redevelopment down here. So I'd like to just say, if we're serious about revitalizing downtown, we need to embrace housing and address the zoning and parking issues if we're serious about moving downtown forward. So, thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Deanne. We'll open it up to the council. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dee, very much. Appreciate everybody being here, members of Main Street. It's nice to see everybody. What a team we have. There's a few people that have been on it since it was PDAT, when it was Peabody Downtown
Action Committee.
Action
Team.
Action Team. But
With
thank
the
God
best
we
one.
changed that to Main Streets and didn't have to carry that acronym around with us.
Yes.
What really amazes me is the number of volunteer hours. That is just in 2018, or is that
No, that's
cumulative
cumulative.
since 2000, since 13? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's incredible. It really is incredible. And all of the good things that have happened because of that energy, and it really starting to shape a new downtown. And I'm just very proud to be a member of the team, and I want to thank all my fellow volunteers. I appreciate everything you do for us. Thank you.
Yeah, just so that everybody knows, I mean, there are about 40 people who meet once a month on their own committees, usually at 7:30 in the morning before they go off to their regular jobs. So it is a great group.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just kind of reinforcing Councilor Gould's comments. The volunteer hours are incredibly impressive. And as with Councilor Gould, I just want to thank everybody that's been involved, those that are here tonight, those that weren't able to make it tonight. As you just pointed out, those 7:30 meetings are never ending. Sometimes you wonder if we're making progress, but it's always great to have these kind of reset meetings where we can kind of look back in the rearview mirror and celebrate the fact that tremendous success has been made, and kind of appraise the council of that, because those that are kind of always involved in the details of it don't necessarily get to see that, don't see the forest from the trees necessarily. So I thank you for the succinct update, and again, thank you to everybody involved with Main Streets.
Councilor Charest.
Thank you. It is a great organization, and I'm proud to be part of it, is the limited part that I can, besides the early morning meetings, because I'm already at work. But it is a great deal of work that you folks all put into it and make it a fun downtown. And I know it's being recognized because people from outside the community where I work are recognizing it and talking about coming. So it's good. And I know when you're talking about the parking, and it's around downtown too, because those are the people who will be coming down and not necessarily have to work downtown, live downtown, but when they live on just the outskirts of it, it's still part of that plan. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think people really need to take that for what it's worth, and saying, hey, we need to relook at some of these things just to keep on promoting Peabody to go forward. So I appreciate you talking about that. I appreciate everyone here spending their time and getting this going forward. It's only going to get better. I have so much fun when I go. So thank you.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for all your volunteer hours, and the work that everyone does is really, really paying off. And I do recall a few years ago, you came forward, I think, with Karen Sawyer at the time, to describe an effort to upgrade the signs and put murals on the utility boxes. And to me, when those things started to happen, they appear to be little things, but when they start to happen in succession, it really starts to brighten things up, and it gives a great feel, and it's really aesthetically pleasing. And a lot of people notice it and enjoy it. So I just wanted to encourage the group to continue doing what they're doing. And I wish I could remember what city it was, and I think I mentioned this to Kurt Bellavance. I drove through a city and I went under an underpass, and they had murals in the underpass, much like the utility boxes. And I was wondering if we could take a look at doing something like that to brighten up. You know, we have a couple underpasses on Lowell Street. We have one at the entrance of North Shore Road, and especially the one on Lowell Street, 128. It's really kind of creepy, you know, with the two garage. I'm always wondering what's behind those garage doors and things like that. And you'll notice it now that I mention it. Next time you go under that one, you'll notice it. But I was wondering if we could take a look maybe at expanding that program with things like that, because it really does brighten things up, and it really puts a different mood and a different take for people entering the city, because I noticed it in the city that I was in. So I just wanted to, you know, throw that idea out there and to encourage you all to continue to do things like that and bring new ideas and initiatives forward, because little things like that really do make a big difference, and a lot of constituents remark on it. So I want you to know that constituents appreciate it as well. So thank you all very much.
If there's nobody else, can I get a motion to adjourn? My apologies, I missed you, Councilor Gravel.
So when Turco took over the presidency, and the first thing I said to him is, you know, nobody ever looks left. That's why I love this seat. Or looks right from your perspective. I mean, they always look over there. Demo, you're going to get all the calls this year. I just, you know, and Ian, that was a beautiful recommendation. I mean, I'm sure Julie can attest to having run down Lowell Street a few times. The only thing you see underneath that bridge is what the pigeons have left you, and it really is kind of disgusting when you think about it. So it would be nice to see some brightness there, but I kind of wish we had done a time lapse, because people get used to seeing change, and they see it in small increments, and they don't realize how much has gone in and how much has really changed. Just the perspective of when you look at the monument with the uplighting on it, and you come into what used to be a very confusing intersection, and now it's a much more simplified. I mean, when we first talked about that years and years and years ago, I remember people worried about, oh, there's going to be a huge amount of accidents there, and the traffic is going to back up. I remind people that, you know, clearly one of the goals was to slow things down, and we've achieved that goal. We slowed things down especially during the early morning and the afternoon, but it's a much more walkable environment now, and you see these restaurants popping up, and that tells you that the business community has seen something that they like, because they're investing now. When the new event space opens and Granite State opens, with the brewery down there, and Tex-Mex moves, and we knock down the Brody's building and you put a park there, I mean, everything that you see is going to be so different, so new, so fresh, but with a touch of character that's the old as well. So having been a part of the group from the PDAT days, I still have a PDAT shirt, by the way. It's been a great group to work with, and if I can convey one message from that group to this group is they would like you to listen to them when they're telling you about what their concerns are, with an open mind, and not necessarily an opinion that whatever they say you can't do. When they talk about parking, it's because they've talked to developers, they've sat through meetings with people, they've listened to what people are saying, and they're a valuable resource to us. So we all should just keep an open mind when the recommendations are coming through, that unlike politics, they're coming through with recommendations based upon what they're hearing and seeing from those that they're trying to attract. And sometimes it's not within our mindset to accept it, but clearly to listen and to understand where they're coming from, I think would be a big benefit to them, because that's the only frustrating part. You know, there's nothing worse than working in a group and feeling like you're not being heard, and that your opinion doesn't count. I think I want to say to all of them, as one of them, your opinion does count, and we're hoping that you continue to provide those opinions so that we can shape the best downtown possible. Because I get a chance to travel a lot, and I've seen a lot of stuff in a lot of downtowns. None of them happen in weeks, none of them happens in months, none of them happen sometimes in decades. I've been to downtowns that have been 20 years in the making, that you look at and say, wow, we'd love to be like this, but it's 20 years in the making with a vision on making it the way it should be. And I think, you know, we're inching our way through, and we continue to push it. We can get the transportation thing going, if we can get the parking thing going. We certainly have got, I was here doing the presentation the morning with the developers and realtors, and there was such a buzz amongst them thinking, you know, if the city and these folks are in line with helping us produce the results, then we're in line with investing. And they weren't talking small money, they were talking big money. So thank you, Dee, in particular, for sticking it out and putting all the hours into it. I for one, appreciate it.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate it. And can I get a motion to adjourn? Councilors, we'll begin in 2 minutes. Good evening. I'd like to convene the meeting of the Peabody City Council dated January 10th, 2019. Please join me in a moment of silence. It's a vote. This meeting is being televised live on cable channel 9 and is being taped by Peabody Access Television and also being recorded by our City Council stenographer. So motion to approve the record from Councilor Gould.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Manning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And through you to the clerk, I see that there's an amended, there are amended minutes for the special meeting minutes to
Yes.
correct ones that have already been
Yes, it's a correction.
accepted, right? And then these are to amend those, correct? Because there was a
Yes.
motion missing on the November 29th, originally reported and accepted minutes, correct?
Yes, correct.
Excellent, thank you very much.
We're going to move to item 4A, entertainment license transfer. The clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, January 10th, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franco Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Georgia Inc., DBA Trackside Bar and Grill, 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting the transfer of an entertainment license for the use of televisions and radio/stereo for background music at said 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass. Peabody City Council, Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
Thank you. Could you please state your name and address for the record? excuse me, could you just press the button?
Good evening. My name is Attorney John Meridian from Democus Law Offices, 56 Central Avenue in Lynn. With me is,
Enkeleida Jorga.
what's your address?
Enkeleida Jorga. That's the owner of Trackside.
And your address?
Your address.
That's 5 Litchfield Road, Peabody, Mass.
I'm going to be here on behalf of the applicant, simply asking for a transfer of the entertainment license for use of a couple televisions and radio stereo for background music at the restaurant. The Gorgers purchased the restaurant, and we closed on the restaurant on December 28th, so it's in their name now, and we're simply asking for a transfer of the entertainment license.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? Is there any opposition to the petitioner? Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilors may recall this request was before us in February of 2018. The matter was continued because the applicant didn't own the business at that point in time. The sale of the property was held up for a few issues, one of which was an easement that the City Council granted in late February of 2018. It's my understanding that the sale of the property, as the attorney just mentioned, did ultimately close. I thought it was December 30th, but you're telling me it was December 28th, on or about the 28th or the 30th. So the applicant is now the owner of the business and is properly pursuing an entertainment license transfer. I spoke to the applicant, whose wife is here tonight. I think it's Lita, is that right? I am supportive of this transfer, and I'd open it up to other councilors for any comments they might have.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, of course, I support the transfer. I'm just curious what's in store for the trackside. It is one of my favorite places, so I was just curious what's in store for the trackside now.
Yeah, we are going to keep same way, same food, same everything. We are not changing nothing on that one. Just so far, just the way how was before.
Oh, okay, I think a lot of people will be happy with that because a lot of people are inquiring what's going to be offered there now. So I think people will be really happy with that. So I welcome you to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thanks.
Councilor Matsoulis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Only because I'm a customer of your place. I go there quite a bit. And my daughters love it, and Annie said it all. The food is great, and for people in Peabody that are not aware or know about the place, I suggest they go there. They've got great, if you like Portuguese food, it's absolutely one of the best. So I'm in 100% in support, and I wish you luck. Thank you.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve the application from Georgia Inc., DBA, doing business as Trackside Bar and Grill, 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting the transfer of an entertainment license for the use of television and radio stereo for background music at said 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass. For the hours of non-live entertainment stated in the application. So moved.
Roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Councilors, we'll move to item 4B on the agenda. 4B. The clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as the special permit granting authority, will conduct a recessed public hearing on Thursday evening, January 10th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. in the Franco Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from William Scoris, rear 170 Lynn Street, Peabody, Mass. For a special permit to convert the first floor restaurant tavern to eight apartments at 59-61 Walnut Street, Peabody, Mass. Is filed in accordance with sections 1.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
State your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations, by the way. Members
Thank
of the
you.
City Council, my name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Lowell Street here in Peabody, Massachusetts, and I appear on behalf of William Scoris, who resides at rear 170 Lynn Street here in Peabody, Massachusetts. He's the owner and operator of Scoris Painting Contracting Business. That business is located on Mason Street in Peabody. And he is the current owner of 5961 Walnut Street in Peabody, Mass. It was the site of the Taberna, which was the coffee house. John Scoris, my client's dad, operated for many years. In fact, he had operated at his coffee house and then the tavern that it was most recently for almost 50 years. The permit we seek this evening is to convert the first floor, which has not been a tavern or pub and has been without a liquor license for going near to 2 years. Mr. Scoris had previously renovated the second floor apartments. In 1990, this council gave a special permit to allow for 10 apartments on the second floor. There are 9 up there because one of them was never built out. That space was used for a boiler room for the for the second floor facilities. The request before you this evening is to convert the first floor now into 8 units. They are efficiency apartments. They have a bathroom. They are not a common area. There are no common spaces utilized by any of the residents. They have a kitchen facility in the sense that there is no stove, but there is a space for a small refrigerator. My clients have currently been working, so they are one room with a bathroom. So to describe them technically as apartments, they're more like pure efficiency units. NASCAP has entered into a tentative agreement with Mr. Scoris to assist in the development, if you will, of the clientele for the first floor. They have recently, in the last 2 years, come to Mr. Scoris and located a lot of their clientele, people in need of housing, located them on the second floor. There has been no turnover since we've entered into the arrangement with NASCAP. We have members of NASCAP representatives who are more than willing to speak this evening if the council would like to hear from them, and I think that Mr. Brown will take the opportunity to speak to the council. And I think that we've seen all the memos that were issued some time ago. There were no negatives. There was an outstanding inspection that needed to take place. That has been corrected. The fire department has issued all the appropriate permits for a lodging. The permit that actually issues is for lodging house, lodging rooms. And so we're pleased to say that we now are hoping to convert the first floor into eight units, and we would once again enter into an agreement with NASCAP to assist in the choosing of tenants for Mr. Scoris. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have, and if the council would like to hear from, well, that'll come at the appropriate time and matters. Persons in favor, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Kelty. Anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience here to speak in favor?
You wanna? Yeah, you come up.
Thank you. Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Mike Brown, and I live in Lawrence, Massachusetts, 220 Merrimack Street. Okay. I also work at North Shore Community Action Program, and I'm a member of both the Peabody and the Salem Homeless Task Force. And I just wanted to take a minute to share a story that was very meaningful to me. Last year around this time, we were working with the task force to develop emergency housing for the inclement weather for the people that had no place to go and were outside. And we were trying to determine how many people would be there that would be in need of these services. And we went down a list, well, who was there last year? Who showed up for these services last year? And we rattled off a list of names that we could think of and remember. And it dawned on me that all of those people on that list were housed, safely housed, securely, off the streets and no issues. And a lion's share of those folks were housed in Mr. Scoris's property over on Walnut Street. North Shore Community Action provides supportive services and case management for those clients to, keep them, run everything running smoothly. This year, they moved the emergency housing to St. John's Church here, and they've already opened it up over the Thanksgiving holiday. I believe was the first time that it was opened, and there's another 10 people. So last year I was so proud that all the folks were off the street. Now there's a whole new crop, which is about to be expected. But so when a landlord like Mr. Scoris comes forward and wants a partnership with the task force, with the city of Peabody, with North Shore Community Action to provide housing for these folks, to overlook the stigma of homelessness, to provide, a nice place. These little efficiency units are perfect for our clients. It's just been a really positive experience all around for everybody, and I think it's a win-win situation. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Is there anybody else in the audience here to speak in favor? Anybody else here to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience here to speak in opposition? Anybody in the audience here to speak in opposition? Councilor Matsoulis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilors, you all know all our wards are different, and mine is a little different than all of them because it's the oldest ward in the city, and I have more non-conforming uses in Ward 3 than the whole city has. And it's like, how did you get to where you are and why are you making this decision? First of all, let me take you back a few years. Rooming houses were up and down Walnut Street. The tanneries were thriving. People were coming from overseas, coming to this country to work, and that's where they were living. They were living in the rooming houses. As time went by, the buildings got older, the tanneries started going out of business. A lot of those buildings disappeared. If you go up and down Walnut Street, you'll see parking lots, and those were all rooming houses at one time. And just maybe Tom would probably remember, he's close to my age, or maybe Dave would remember. Where Dunkin' Donuts is right now, that was a restaurant on the bottom floor. As a matter of fact, Timmy Spanis' father owned that place. That's how far back I go. And upstairs, there were 10 rooms upstairs, like we're talking about right now, the rooming house. And rooming houses were up and down the street. Arthur Gordon's property, the name of the owner now doesn't come to me, but I'm talking Arthur Gordon's old properties. They were all rooming houses. And then they really supported, the working man. Now, Is there a need for that? Let me tell you. The tanneries are gone, but the businesses are back. You go to Webster Street, you can't find a spot. It's all rented out. Go up and down Walnut Street, exclude maybe one or two businesses that don't care if they're rented. If they really want to get rented in this environment, there isn't a place they cannot get rented. But anyways, so there is a need for this type of living. And I don't 100% agree on let's bring back old things, you know. And when I make a decision in Ward 3, I want to make sure I'm making the right decision. And I really toyed with this because I was not for this. I really wasn't. And we kept recessing it and recessing it and recessing it. And all the councilors, you were asking me week after week, what are you doing? Why are you recessing? Why? Because I wasn't comfortable with it. And I didn't want to make the decision until I was comfortable. Now, I told Mr. Scoris, I said, look, you can rent that restaurant. And he said to me, you do it. Okay, and I'm a real estate salesperson, and most of you know that. So I contacted everybody, every restaurant. I contacted, I'll name you the ones that you're aware of, only because I can mention it. What's the place I just mentioned here around the corner? No, not the, yes, yeah, okay. I contacted the Trackside people. They just sold their place. They're moving to Salem. They were not interested. Brody's. I talked to Brody's. They're not interested. I talked to Gallinero. They were looking for a second location. Went down, looked at it. Okay. Whatever their reasons are, it's their reason. But there is absolutely no interest in putting a restaurant back there. Okay? Now, Mr. Scoris, who had just passed away, Billy's father, nice fellow, I helped him put that restaurant in there. Now, let me tell you how he ran it. John was a hard-working man. He built that paint business, turned it over to his son or sold it to him, whatever their situation was. And he opened that restaurant. It was more of a place for him and his wife to go. I don't think he cared whether he made money out of there or not. He would be open 6 months out of the year, and then he'd go to Greece for 6 months. So that tells you that, you know, was it profitable? It never was profitable. And obviously, I think other people knew that. Maybe that's why no one was interested in going there. But anyways, to cut things short, I'm more comfortable supporting this. As I told you before, I was not comfortable supporting. I'm comfortable now as the ward councilor to support this. And all the questions that were asked in my packet, Jack addressed them. And there was one from the environmental people about touching the footprint. The footprint will not be touched. Am I correct? Okay, that was my concern. But councilors, I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Councilman McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Clearly, I support the work in ASCAP, and I'm very sensitive to a lot of the comments that Councilor Matsoulis made a moment ago, but I'm not going to be able to support this application at this location. If we look at the February 27, 2018 communication from the Conservation Commission, the property at 59 to 61 Walnut Street is 100% in the FEMA AE flood zone. And just to be reminded of this, a few months ago, this property was completely surrounded by water and whatever contaminants were in the water at that time. That was on August 12th, 2018. I printed out a couple of pictures here just to...
Motion to receive.
All in favor, any opposed?
Just to kind of refamiliarize councilors with the situation down there very recently. These pictures on August 12, 2018 were the same time of the pictures that were taken at that point in time. Much of Walnut Street was underwater, and the East End Peabody Veterans Memorial Park was completely flooded. We all know this has happened before, and it will happen again. The city's taken steps to mitigate flooding, like the creation of the park, which was designed to retain water and flood water. However, as discussed at the September 2018 Industrial and Community Development Committee meeting, when the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program was reviewed, like all other communities, Peabody is facing an uphill battle on flooding. I am not supportive of establishing any residential use, particularly on the ground floor in this FEMA AE flood zone, and I think doing so would be a short-sighted move that puts residents in harm's way and puts strain on our emergency responders. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was struggling with this one as well, and I did call some time ago, as it's been recessed, as Councilor Mitsoulas has said, the Executive Director, Laura McNeil. Given the NASCAP's interest and involvement in this, I wanted to reach out and find, what type of services that they were going to be offering. And after talking with her, I was more interested in supporting it. And I think Mr. Brown, if he could share the oversight and the programming that's going to be offered to these individuals in effort to make them more self-sustained individuals. It isn't just they are homeless, but it is a pathway for them to be self-sustaining with the assistance of NASCAP. So with the, in respect, so I think it will be helpful if Mr. Brown explains what type of assistance these individuals are going to get, number one. And then number two, I do want to know what if NASCAP partnership with this rooming house, which is already, it's a rooming house now, it's non-conforming, so this is an addition of 8 more rooms. I'd like to know what, if anything, will happen if NASCAP partnership or oversight of this program ends. If it ceases at any point, that's one thing. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is the language that's been used in this petition. These aren't apartments, and apartments aren't allowed in the GBD. They're clearly not apartments. It doesn't meet the definition of our zoning of an apartment. And it does meet, I think the word efficiency units was kind of bantered about in describing these. And I think that that would fall under more so the definition of rooming house in our zoning. So with that, Councilor Mitsoulas, if you would consider perhaps tweaking the language, because apartments aren't allowed in the GBD. So you might want to reflect rooming house, because it is allowed, and it's already an existing non-conforming, which you have already articulated. And then lastly, Councilor McGinn is correct that that is a flood zone, and which is interesting because we also had on this for this evening, but I guess it's been postponed until later in the month, to have a zoning change from a GBD to a BC to allow apartments in a flood zone. So you're right, that is a flood zone, and now we'll be having a whole parcel of land that abuts Howley and Walnut, which is being requested to change from a GBD to a BC in order to put in multiple apartments. So I don't remember how many it was. Was it 40 or so? I don't know. So that is a problem, that it's a flood zone. So we are, with respect to the zoning change. However, it is zoned GBD, which is zoned for a rooming house, which is already a non-conforming use. I do appreciate your remarks, Council McGinn, and it is in our zoning that we cannot put apartments in a flood zone. That's in our zoning. We shall not, I think it says shall not, might even be the language. We shall not do that. But it is zoned for rooming house, and these individuals they are homeless. It is a service that would be provided to them to get them back on their feet. It is zone GB, it's already a non-conforming use. So again, with NASCAP's partnership and oversight and the services that they're going to offer these individuals in the homelessness plight that we do have, I do feel that the right thing to do here, speaking for myself, is to support this petition. So those are my concerns and remarks. If I could, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the counselor, the ward counselor, if he could address my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll give it back to Councilor Matsoulis.
Councilors, I can go into that neighborhood and bring some light on things. I'm going back to when I was a kid, and that's why my ward is different, because you talk about people that homeless, helping them out, taking care of them. That's not new. That's not something that just happened all of a sudden we got homeless in Peabody. When I was a kid going to grammar school, if you went up the top of Tracy Street, NATO's garage was there and the junk cars were in the yard. And we'd be going to the Carroll School, we'd have our lunch in our hand, and we'd go by and we'd open the car doors and there's the homeless sleeping in the cars. And you know who they were? They were people that lived in the neighborhood. They were Peabody people who either were down on their luck, maybe they had a drinking problem or any other kind of problem. Maybe they just couldn't afford an apartment. I don't know. But you know something? It wasn't just there. It was everywhere. If you went down along the railroad tracks, you could see the cardboard boxes, one after another. And you know what? They were all Peabody people, and I knew them all by name, and I was only 12 years old. Today, okay, those same people are there, and they're Peabody people, believe it or not. You know, I don't want to name them because I don't want to embarrass anybody. Maybe they don't want their names known, but they're people that need help, okay? Now, as far as the flooding problem itself, we're all aware of that. Let me tell you something. In the 50s, Eastman Gelatin's dam burst and it flooded the whole Walnut Street. The next day in the newspapers, we were on rowboats, you know, and we were in the front page of the Peabody Times. And when we got a lot of rain, it flooded all the time down there. It doesn't flood as bad now because of the retention centers we have right now. We don't get that bad of flooding anymore. We still get it, and Councilor McGinn has, he's 100% right in showing that picture. But let me say this. Look what's down there. That flooding affects all those businesses down there, okay? And on the second floor, it affects New England Meat Market, it affects all those businesses. It even affects the church that's right next door also. And sometimes it goes right past the church and it goes to Oliveira's. And Oliveira's has apartments upstairs also, okay? But my point is this, that this has been going on for 100 years now, okay? And in that one location for 100 years now, okay, has been a rooming house. It's been there forever. And I remember as a kid, I could tell you who lived there. Upstairs lived the Turks. There were 4 units up there back then. And back in the early days, The Greeks and the Turks migrated to Peabody. One side, past Wallace Street, lived the Turks. The Greeks lived on the other side. That, there was coffee houses down the street, and most of you probably don't even know what a coffee house is. Coffee house to the Greeks and the Turks was like an Elks. It was a club where they went, they hung around. It was where they went to congregate, have a cup of coffee. Their culture, changed the way people in this area lived. It was their culture, okay? Where the coffee house is right now, that's why it's called the coffee house, because down below it was a coffee house. And the Greeks moved out, there was no need for coffee houses anymore, and Mr. Skouras came to me and said, Jim, can you help me? And I said, well, he said, what am I going to do? I own a building, and I have rooms upstairs. I need to do something. And I said, well, what is it you want to do? We took one step at a time, and we got him the restaurant. That's why when we talk about Ward 3, I get into it deeply so you'll understand how we got here. It's not like any other part of the city. It's nothing like West Peabody or South Peabody. Walnut Street took care of all these ethnic groups. That's why you have the Post, the Portuguese Hall, the CLC, the Lady of Help Hall, and you got the one down on Harley Street also. Okay? These, that's their ethnic heritage. And we're a city who welcomes and helps. And we've been doing that forever, and we're going to continue doing it forever. Do I see a problem with the flooding? No, I don't. No, I don't. It may get, once in a great while, okay, it may get up to where they wet their feet. But you know something? I'm not going to make that an issue when it's been a rooming house for 100 years. The people on the second floor had to come downstairs to walk out. So what's the difference? And that's why I'm supporting it. Thank you.
Councilman Amon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I could just follow up with the question, either to you or to Councilor Kelty, regarding if NASCAP separates their oversight or their partnership. I'd like to know what the plan is if that happens, if it could be put in the special permit that any transfer has to come back to the council or something if NASCAP is no longer involved. So if you could touch upon that. But also, Jim, I just want to remark, I do appreciate very much your history lessons, bringing us back to the beauty of Walnut Street and Ward 3. I grew up down there as well, and as you know, my father was the principal of the Carroll School for 25 years. And it's stories like that that people need to remember and be reminded of, because I recall when I was very, very young, hearing stories of the church that burned down there, and they had no place to go for their services. So my father gave them the keys to the Carroll School, and they set up services right in the basement of the Carroll School. And that's the environment, and that's the community that we have, and that's the culture that we have that is maintained today. We help each other out. That's what we do here in Peabody. We lift people up and we help them out. And I think that that's what this project is all about. And again, Jim, I appreciate the way you love your ward and that you are a defender of your people in your ward, and I truly appreciate it. But if you could address the issue of NASCAP's partnership, if it is to cease at any point in the future. Thank you.
If the partnership, if you will, which is pretty informal, a relationship, so if that were to cease, my client would continue to operate the premises under the provisions of this hopeful special permit this evening, which would be to operate it as an efficiency unit, and the rents would probably remain the same, et cetera. So Bill currently has one of his employees who is in his painting company, lives on the premises and acts as kind of a property manager, so that there's no need for NASCAP to be involved on an everyday basis. What they generally are, the service they're providing, is they're providing services to some of the people who live in the premises, and they're helping us to locate parties that might want to live in the premises. So there's not a formal management contract, just this relationship, and we would continue to utilize the premises in the same fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too, Jim, enjoy the history lessons. I think they're, it brings back a lot of memories. I do remember the place where Dunkin' Donuts was, by the way. So I guess that puts me in the same age category. My question was on the units. Are the units going to have, all of them have their own bathroom facilities?
Yes. There are no common facilities but for the hallways.
All right, that's great, because some of the rooming houses, that's not the way it works. And I think that makes it more, it's not an apartment, but it makes it more like an apartment. There's privacy in the bathroom, and they're going to have kitchenettes or no?
They have cupboards and cabinets throughout that room, that living space room, for storage. They have a sink, and there is an availability with this one of the countertops that you could locate a small refrigerator, like you have in dormitories and things like that. And at the same time, you could have a microwave or hot plate, provided they would be allowed.
And I too have.
And one of the services that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but NASCAP assists in some of the people that don't have any means at the outset to put some of that equipment in the building.
And that's great. And Laura did come over. I actually spoke to her the other day to talk about, spoke very passionately about this property in terms of what it can do to help the homeless, and it really was convincing to me that it was a valuable thing to add to the city and to add to the housing pool. On the flooding issue, does the landlord have any mitigation ideas that he could put into place?
Yes, with the most recent renovation, which was at the second floor, he installed, there's a total of 9 pumps, 7 which are directed at any flooding issue in the basement, and the other 2 are actual groundwater pumps that operate continuously. And the basement could hold approximately 50,000 gallons of water, and these pumps, 10,000. Oh. Yeah, so it's the storage capacity in that basement is 10,000 gallons, and his pumps have the capacity to move 50,000. Yep. So yes, he has taken measures.
Thanks, because that's what I was hoping to hear, that you know, we can't eliminate, and I think Council McGinn's right in terms of, we can't eliminate flooding anywhere. I mean, and you know, I understand it's in the flood zone as documented by the Army Corps of Engineers and all of that, but I mean, I look at, Councilor Turco can tell you what, on some rainstorms, what Linfield Street looks like. I mean, you could see a clear half foot of water sometimes going right up to the houses, and you know, a little further down the road there near Honey Lane, the same thing. You know, yards filled with water. You go down on Cedar Grove Road and down in that area, Rainbow Terrace, and same problem. I mean, I think the only thing we can do, you know, they're not next to raging rivers by any stretch of the imagination, but the only thing that we can all do, and I mean, particularly people who own the land, as the that as the characteristics of it change and we get, and if we're seeing more water, in this case, we're not seeing more water, we're seeing fewer incidents because we're trying to catch the water elsewhere. You know, the best that we can do is put in mitigation efforts to try to support the needs of the things that are there. And I have to agree with Councilman Tsoulis's point. It's no safer, if we were going to use that as our yardstick, it's no safer for the people on the second floor than it is for the people on the first floor. If it's the emergency vehicles and such that we're worried about. But I can support this, even understanding that it's in the flood zone, knowing the efforts that are going forward to try to mitigate the flooding to the best possible, particularly with the landlord participating in that. And clearly, if we, you know, fortunately with forecasting today, we're seeing more forewarning about, you know, if we were to have a 10-inch event or a 12-inch event, or God forbid, like they had down in Florida, some 24-inch events, 36-inch events. You know, clearly I think it would be in everybody's interest, including NASCAP's and the landlord and others on that street, they'd be evacuated for their own safety, because the chances of the water rising to a unsafe level, extremely unsafe level, would be very high. So I think we can work with this.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Like much has been said already by my fellow councilors regarding some of the reservations that I had when I first saw this coming up, and I had discussed it with Councilor Matsoulis a few months ago, and he had the same. You know, I do feel better hearing about some of the flood mitigation, as I couldn't agree more with Councilor McGinn. One issue I've always had is why, you know, sometimes the lower income housing is always put in some of the most difficult places to live. And, you know, I think with the flooding issue that you're going to see down there, that's no difference. However, you know, in doing my research for this particular special permit, you know, when you drive down Walnut Street and you see this, if you're going to see what seems to be a place that can't be rented, a storefront, it would bother me to know that that could be utilized by an agency like NASCAP, and that is not being, if we were to not approve it, that it would not be utilized in that fashion, that it would be either remain vacant, or we would be putting ourselves in a position where we'd be limiting the emergency housing that great organizations like NASCAP could be utilizing to put people in a better situation. So this is, for me, it was definitely a toss-up, but with regards to where we are as a city, what we can do. And this particular building, I mean, it's not as if we're talking about building a new building in a flood zone. It exists. It's a place that's there. Right now, what we're talking about is utilizing it and giving the owner an opportunity to utilize it. And while they are partnering with an organization that we can see that is trying to make some better our city. And I think that is something that really does weigh in for me. And I appreciate the Councilor Matsoulis bringing up some of the history of that area. I live in downtown, and I live in a very similar location as Walnut Street. And I know that flooding is a problem, but I also know housing is a problem too. And I think we have to weigh that as we go forward. So, you know, I feel comfortable supporting this particular special permit based on that. I just think if it was a new construction or a zoning change to do this, I think, yes, it's a different discussion we should be having. But I just couldn't, driving by an empty storefront knowing that it could be used for a good cause would bother me. So I will be supporting this particular measure. Thank you.
Councilor Charest.
Thank you, Council President. I just had a few of the questions. On August 2nd, when we had that major flood, did they get water into the units, do you know, Councilor Kelty? Yeah, that'd be good, because I had a couple questions.
Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
William J. Scores, R170 Lynn Street, Peabody, Mass.
So on August 12th when there was the big flood. I was away on a cruise, so I just past August, right? Excuse me?
Nothing, no water came into the building.
The water came into the building.
No water,
Okay.
none whatsoever.
And you saw those pictures, so you had that water
I've got
out from-
cameras in the basement that I see from anywhere I am.
Okay.
All right, so I got 32 cameras at that building, inside and out, and one in particular is in the basement.
Okay.
I watch out for that.
And you said that in the basement, it can hold 10,000 gallons, but the pumps can pump
The
out
estimated capacity for, by cubic foot is estimated around 10,000 gallons capacity. That's from the floor to the ceiling, which would be the first floor. I installed 7 Tsurami pumps. They're Japanese pumps. The significance of those pumps there, those are the pumps that were the backup pumps for Fukushima. That nuclear power plant there. So I went out of my way to get the best possible pumps. 7 pumps just for flood mitigation. I have 2 pumps there, which is just for groundwater. That's it. The capacity of all 9 pumps is in and around 50,000 gallons for a 10,000 gallon space. Now, to back that up, for what, if we do go forward with this project here, I'm going to plan on installing a life safety systems in case the power was to ever go out. Right? It's a 22,000 or 26,000 watt generator, self-automatic gas, naturally gas operated, off the ground, out back, right? Not an issue. They will power up pretty much the whole building.
That was one of my next question. If you lost power, would you be having a generator to utilize?
All my other properties that I own, I'm one of those prepper guys. I like to do that down there also. That's
So-
my plan.
With these units, are you building them the floor to, just in case water comes in, not having wall to wall, but you may have
Example, the first floor
tile?
will be like a prophylactic. In other words, but heavy duty, like 040 gauge rubber, right? We flip it all the way up along the perimeter of the wall there. Then we lay down 4x8 stone plates, plywood, or basically cement board, and the framing will be either steel. I expect steel framing. The insulation will be the spray-on insulation. In other words, for the worst-case scenario, so we don't have any mold or mildew problems. For worst-case, doomsday type of scenario, I don't expect there to be a problem. The other thing is, should we come to a problem like that, like floods from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, if you come over to that building and inspect every entrance, there's a flood barrier I installed, right, which is like stock like this, metal stock, that you slide a gate right down. It's a floodgate on each and every entrance. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So each entrance has that, and then just to be on the safe side, just add a little piece of plastic there, done. The most water that would come in there would be very trickle water, because I stayed in there the last big storm. I slept on the couch in there, woke up to the pumps, there was no power, the pumps weren't working, and my dog and I fell in the water when we rolled over, right? That's what happened. So I learned from all those things back in the day to make things almost damn perfect going forward. I made it so if I had to live down there in that environment, all right, I made it to work for me. And just to give you an idea of what I've done on the second floor, hardwood floors in each unit, oak cabinetry all the way around so people can have room in their room. Same thing goes to the bathroom. Italian tiles, about $5, $6 a square foot. These are nice units. If you come inside to look at it, you're going to say, damn, these are nice. Right? And that's what I did. And I priced them out appropriately. Right? So I don't want to outprice myself. I stayed within the HUD guidelines, which for this area here, and made it work. These two people from NASCAP have been great stewards for the city of Peabody, doing what they're doing here, helping these people here, and it's working out pretty well for me down there with these people. They've taken 6 of the 9 units, and they come and they visit and take care of these people here. They come and they visit, they take care of these people. It's not like they just dump them. No, these people are the people. These people are saints.
And I am aware of what they do, and I
They're
do
saints. They really
I
are.
certainly do appreciate it. With this, I will not through the chair. I'm not sure who this would be directed to. Could these be counted towards our affordable housing units?
I think so.
I don't know the answer to that. I suspect yes.
Good, okay. I'm assuming we'll look into that, if they can be counted, they'd be added to that number, Chairman?
Counselor, on that subject, that was actually a question that I was going to bring up. If Counselor Matsoulis, if we could mandate the 15%.
I did ask. They can be counted. So.
Great. And just one last question, and more curiosity than it wouldn't reflect my vote. The meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, would they be going to the Haven? How do they get fed?
Come there, they're not totally handicapped. They take care of themselves. Fortunately, NASCAP sets them up with a mini refrigerator, a microwave, right? Bedding, everything that they need to live like normal people instead of being out in the street. And fortunately, being in that location, New England Meat Market is right across the street. They have a new owner there. They make prepared meals. Also, a lot of these people here, they go to the Haven for Hunger up on Waller Street there. So they take care of themselves pretty good. So that's a good thing. They take care of when they are sick or ill, can't get around, the NASCAR people take care of them.
That's
Really,
what I was curious. I
really
know they
good.
had no stoves. I know microwaves, and hey, I grant you, a lot of the younger people today don't cook. They get prepared meals.
Well,
and
yeah.
everything
I
else,
mean, it's
so-
not like they cook. I mean, what's the most you're going to cook in there?
Yeah.
You're going to Campbell's soup, cook that up, warm up spaghetti meatballs and stuff like that.
Right. And I know that, that it's to the most needy tenants that's going to be coming in there. But would they be well aware that potentially it could be water to come in? I mean, would that be, I think Dignity will ask for that.
And it happens few and far between. As Mr. Matsoulis said, it's been going on since the beginning of time, all right? Since the time Pilgrims came to this country, all right? I'm 57 years old. I've been a kid, all right? You've had some good floods, but it happens few and far between. We've had some times we had a flood every 2-3 years. Now it's like 5-6 years, all right? The city has done a lot to mitigate the area. It's always going to be an issue. Don't forget, at the corner of Wallace and Walnut Street, there's an apartment building there, all right? It has about 14, 15 units. The last time, at the last flood, National Guard was there to save those people there. They had no mitigation ways, no way to mitigate the flood there, as I am proposing, all right? That's why I think my setup is going to be a no-brainer. Do it right. It's like a boat. It'll be like a boat. The base will be like the bilge. Just pump that stuff up, but the thing is, either you're in or you're out of the building.
And I can appreciate the construction that you're talking
That's
to me
what I
about.
do.
I get it. And
That's what I do. And I've been
so-
doing it, and actually I've
I
been
need
doing
you
it
to
for...
come over to my house and do my basement that way for me too. So thank you very
right.
much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Counselor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Skoras, for the update. Jim, somebody mentioned the Pilgrims. Were you around when the Pilgrims came? But anyway, a lot of good discussion about this situation. I want to tip my hat to the people from NASCAP. You're doing good work, and keep up the good work. I will be supporting this in spite of the flood issue, because as many councilors have said, it's an opportunity to get people off the street and find them a safe place to live. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. If everybody else, Councilor Matsoulis, I just had one request. In line with Councilor Manning's comments, so the original 9 efficiencies, we'll call them, I don't think that they would have been included under the inclusionary zoning, and now that we're adding 8 for a total of 17, I'd just like to see a guarantee that we'll have that 15% no matter what, so that if Mr. Skoras does decide that he's going to go market rate, we don't lose that number toward the cap in the city. So if you could just add a condition to the permit that the 17 units would fall under inclusionary zoning at 15%, I would be content with that if Mr. Skoras or Mr. Kelty don't have issue with that.
Because I think that what Bill was trying to explain was the pricing of the units is what actually puts them into that affordable context, and so we wouldn't have any objection.
Thank you, and I think Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate all the debate, and Councilor Matsoulis, I enjoy the history lessons, so along with everybody else. I would just encourage councilors, whether it's on this issue or any future issue that comes before us with respect to flood zones, to rise to that challenge that was given to you back in September about shifting your thinking a little bit about what's going to happen in these areas, given what is in store for us, given climate change. To think of this in historic context is the wrong paradigm. You need to think about what's going to happen in the future. We know that we are going to see more frequent and more intense storms. That is already happening. I think Councilor Gravel mentioned some of the recent storms in the south. We have experienced some of those same things here, and the state of Massachusetts is telling us that the sea level rise in the foreseeable future is going to be in the range of 1.5 to 4 feet. That's going to push back through the rivers and into our flood zones. So I understand that there are other factors here for councilors that are going to cause you to consider this application differently, and you are certainly entitled to those opinions. But I am asking whether it's with respect to this particular issue or other issues that come before us, and there will be several. I think Councilor Manning Martin mentioned another one that was on the agenda earlier this evening and has been continued. These matters we need to consider those in the context of what's in store for us, not what happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We need to think about what's going to happen going forward with respect to climate and the associated conditions that creates. So that's my request to you. As far as Councilor Melville, with respect to the use, I don't like seeing a vacant property either, but I just submit to you that a restaurant is not the only use that's allowed there, and there would be other uses that are allowed by right that could cause that building to go into a productive use without converting it into a residential use. So with respect to the commitments made by the petitioner, I think I'm not going to question his sincerity with respect to life safety issues and so forth, but I can only look at the record as far as what we have here from when he was cited by the fire department for the rooming house upstairs on some life safety issues with respect to the alarm system and the means of egress and the emergency lights and so forth. And it took several months for those issues to be remedied. That's with several departments checking back with the petitioner before those issues were rectified, and that could cause us to approve the existing renewal of the rooming house upstairs. So I'm a little suspicious about the commitment to life safety when I see this kind of a delay in a response to a citation, which you all have in your packet from December 19, 2017 from the Peabody Fire Department. With respect to the point that was raised by Council President Turco on affordability, if it's the will of the council to approve this, I'm not sure why we would be pushing for 15%. I would think we would want to push for 100% in terms of everything being counted on the inventory. And to perfect that, they would have to agree to a deed restriction on the property for that to be properly counted on our affordable inventory. If these units are ultimately geared towards that use, then I can't see why we would request something less than 100% of the units being counted. Otherwise, we're kind of slighting ourselves with basically what I term accepting small a affordable units when they should be capital A, as in defined capital A affordable units. So formally affordable, not informally affordable. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just, I guess, dovetail on Councilor McGinn's comments. Could we have either through you, Mr. President, could we have the applicant or Attorney Kelty answer the questions about while it was not this particular proposed rooming, or I guess houses, excuse me, rooming area, could we have the applicant or you talk about like the issues that really were life safety issues that caused delays and had the fire department and other departments have to chase him down for quite a while? Maybe someone could answer that on record. Thank you.
That occurred during a time when there was a bit of turmoil in the family. John Scoris' dad, health was failing. He had been in and out of the hospital. Those inspections were conducted for renewal of the rooming house license, and when it came to the city council for renewal, the council put it off because of the issues with the fire department. It did not take as many months as it appears from the record in order to fix those things. They were fixed pretty quickly once it was determined that Bill would take over the premises and he would go in and make those revisions. And then we asked the departments essentially to report on the inspections because we were aware that it was still sitting unapproved. But that was, you're correct that that was for the other. So we don't expect that because when this property is renovated, there will be inspections throughout and all the life safety equipment will be in place. On the issue of the affordables, these...
Excuse me, Councilor Kelty. Councilor O'Neill, you still have the floor?
Please, I just want to go back to the life safety issues. I understand everyone here knows about family issues and things that can arise, but I guess the point I was trying to make is that it was an inspection that found these major life safety issues. So the real question is why did it take an inspection to, and God forbid, what if something had happened before? That's kind of what we're getting at. We're hearing a commitment from the applicant that he's going to be doing all these things. Now it pertains to flood mitigation and life safety, but he brought up life safety. I guess that just kind of sticks in my craw that it's, you know, the city found out the issues and he didn't direct it or they didn't direct it. Thank you.
The city found them out because they had to conduct the renewal inspections. But it was at a time when Bill was not managing the property. His dad was, and that was the reason I brought up, you know, some of the failing health that I don't think that Dad addressed it as quickly as he ought to have, and it was revealed by the inspection. Speaking to the issue of the affordables, I had just inquired of the NASCAP folks, and they explained to me that these are considered market rate units. But it so happens that the price that Bill is able to offer them at fits within their guidelines so that they can provide services to this particular unit. If they were somewhere else paying much higher rents, NASCAP wouldn't necessarily be in a position to be able to supply the services they're supplying. So I don't know necessarily how we get them 100% or 15% account, you know. I think that actually Community Development Department would have to examine the premises, look at the rent roll, and then apply essentially to the state in order to have them counted.
I'll defer to Councilor McGinn.
I think you're asking me a question, Attorney Kelty. I was shaking my head because I don't agree with your assessment. I think to qualify as affordable and count against our inventory, it would require that a deed restriction be put in place.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think that that's all that it takes. It also has to do with how much they cost and whether they're providing, you know, I think the mere fact that we could say here's the rents and here's what they're offering, you know, here's what is being offered, the size of the unit, et cetera, that they may be considered affordable. But I don't think we can necessarily qualify as affordable if we've got to set the rent at some level that is significantly lower than the current rents, which is $950 a month.
Councilman McGinn, you all set?
Yeah, I am all set, but I think that in some respects we're agreeing. You would have to, the owner of the property would have to agree to rent the properties at rates that would comply with the affordability, as deemed by the state. And in addition to that, the property would need to have a deed restriction to guarantee that that happens over a defined period of time, generally 10 to 30 years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman McGinn, could you put that in the form of a condition on the permit? Reason being, I will wholeheartedly support this, but not if it doesn't include the guarantee that these are affordable units. We've been chasing a number for decades, and I'm not willing to go backwards on that number to accommodate 9 units for Mr. Scoris. Each housing development that we address on this council, we guarantee that we get that 15% so that we're not constantly falling behind, and I'm not going to do it today. So if we can get a guarantee that those units will stay 100% affordable, I'll support it. If not, then I won't. With that, Councilor Mitsoulas.
I don't know that I could agree to reset the rents based on, the condition. I don't know, as I stand here this evening, I don't know what the state would recognize as a, affordable rent for this particular unit size. So I couldn't really guarantee that we would have 15% or 100% of the units be forever regarded as affordable. If it so happens that our 950 puts us in that category, we'd be happy to do that. Because there's cost of living increases that go along with that. So the state recognizes that rents can change, but they still have to stay within a ratio of the mean income in the region you're in. I would not disagree with any kind of a condition that says we should explore with the Community Development Department, Stacy Burnson, as to whether we can qualify it as all of these units being affordable. No objection to that, because I have a sense that we probably are.
I'll give the floor to Councilor Mitsoulas.
Yep.
I'm Heidi Williams, and I work at North Shore Community Action Program, and I'm the director of the Community Outreach Program. The rents that Bill has on these units are actually below fair market rent. I think SROs right now are going for $1,300. Bill's only asking $950, and that's lower than what we could actually pay. We could actually pay more, but he's making it nice and easy for us so we can use the money that we receive to help more people. So as for keeping it like that, if something happened with funding, Bill would keep it the same price, because this day and age, people can't afford to, pay rent that's out there right now. Especially with these folks that we work with, it makes it affordable for us to be able to help a lot more than we could, if that makes sense. Any questions? Or?
Thank you very much. Councilor Mitsoulas.
It does make sense, and it does sound like it's below market, but I'm not comfortable telling people what they should charge for rent. I mean, never did that before. Never said, hey, you got to put $200 on your apartment. You got to charge so-and-so, However the system runs, if they're below market value, that's going to work its way out, and it's going to become one of those units. We'll get 15% if the price is right. We'll get 100% if the price is right. But You want me to tell them what to charge? I'm not comfortable telling them what to charge, you know? But anyways, like the close...
Councilor
Oh.
Councilor Sasslaw would like to speak for a minute, if you don't mind.
No.
Thank you, Council President. I agree with what you just said, Councilman Sulis. I mean, what's kind of got me a little bit flustered is that we have a petitioner who came here to make a presentation, and, when we're building a brand-new apartment complex or things of that nature, that's when we go with the 15%. And not that I don't want to hit the 15%. I certainly do. But to have a private party come in with a private piece of property and then to dictate to them what the rent should be, and no one, I don't think anyone in this chamber right now knows how they could qualify for inclusionary zoning, what that number is. I certainly don't know what it is. Is it 862? Is it 927? Is it 1,015? And so we've put them in a very precarious situation. I don't agree with it. I don't think that, as I said, if you have a private piece of property, the rent you want to charge is the rent you want to charge, and now to tie it up into inclusionary zoning, I think we're going down a path that is inappropriate. But what I think is more appropriate is the fact that you have NASCAP here and the work they do. And I understand it might not be an easy vote, but I'm going to support it because of what I heard. I wasn't going to speak at all, but I felt the road we're going down I don't think is the proper road. I do support the 15% inclusionary zoning. I think we're going to have some developments later this year that we can maybe get to that. But I just don't think it's appropriate to hold this man hostage. And I am going to put a lot of weight into the fact that NASCAP is here. If they weren't here, I hear what Councilor O'Neill said. I think your points are valid. They weren't addressed. And, they should have been some of the safety concerns. I think that's absolutely valid to bring that up, and it's the right time tonight. But, we know we had a mild winter. We all know that. It's January 10th. And, there are people who are homeless. And, we have a gentleman who's willing to sacrifice some profit over helping the community. And as Councilor Manning said, that's what we do in Peabody. So for that reason, I'm going to support this proposal.
So I guess I don't understand the disagreement with the affordables. We have 24 units being built in West Peabody, 24 over $500,000 homes. We have 24 homes being built in South Peabody. And yes, this council or this planning board has told those developers that they will give us 15% at a certain cost. We don't know what that cost is. We've told them you will sell it for those for that amount. And now the argument is that we can't tell this gentleman that he can rent for that amount. But it's okay to sell homes at $100,000 less or more for those units. It's just my opinion, and with that, I'm done. Councilor Manning Martin.
Yes, and your intent and sentiment is a good one. However, with inclusionary zoning, and you mentioned it, it's about a sale of a cost of a condo. It's not about renting a condo. So all these developments, as Councilor Sasslaw mentioned, are new developments where inclusionary zoning would come into effect. But it's about a sale of a home or a sale of a condo. It's not what you can rent out an apartment for. So I think the lines are getting a little blurred, and I think I agree with Councilor Sasslaw that we're probably going down a road that we probably shouldn't be going down this evening. So thank you.
Councilor Matsoulis. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Matsoulis, for the floor. The applicability of inclusionary zoning relates to any residential development where there's a creation of 8 or more housing units. That's rental or ownership. That's the ordinance. So there's nothing inappropriate about this discussion. This is the ordinance, and I'm suggesting to Councilor Turco that, you know, it's not clear to me why we would only accept the 15% when it appears to me that the intent here is to use these units for affordable purposes across the board. So why not get credit for those units on the affordable inventory? I can't see passing at that opportunity. I don't think we're doing anything inappropriate. Inclusionary zoning should apply. The only reason, and Councilor Manning Martin, as you pointed out, the only reason it might not on a technicality is because that calls out specific zoning districts, and this is an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming. So, you know, we would want that in there so we make sure this doesn't get by on a technicality or escape the provision of the inclusionary zoning ordinance. But again, I can't imagine why we wouldn't, if we know the intent is to use these for affordable units, not to get that counted. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Matsoulis.
Well, close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve special permit for William Scorers doing business at 59 and 61 Walnut Street for the purpose of converting the first floor restaurant tavern to eight rooming units. So move.
On the vote, roll call.
Councilors Matsoulis,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
No.
McGinn,
No.
Rossignol,
No.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
No.
Motion fails, 7-4.
Thank you, councilors.
Item 4C, Councilor Matsoulis.
The next meeting after the 31st would be February 14th.
I'd like to go to item C and recess that until, well, have that done on the, what date you say, Tim?
February 14th?
February 14th. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Move to receive a late communication, Councilor Matsoulis, from late communication.
Which is just a letter asking that it be placed on that agenda.
Motion to receive, Mr. Chairman.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? Continue till February 14th. And on the motion to continue, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Let's move to item 5, reports of committees.
Thank you.
Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you referenced just now, we continued item 4C, the discussion of rezoning of parcels 136 and 137 until February 14th. Correct, Mr. Clerk? Is that what you just said? I'm reporting out how in subcommittee, in subcommittee we're going on the 31st.
Correct.
Sorry, right. So we're rehearing after discussion between Attorney Kelty and Community Development Director Bellavance. There's going to be some changes presented to us, and we'll take that on when it comes before us on the 31st, Mr. President. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Next report is from the Committee of the Whole. We had Peabody Main Streets. Deanne Haley came to speak to us. She fit a lot of information in approximately 15 to 20 minutes regarding the great work that Peabody Main Streets is doing. She referenced the pop-up pub that will be March 2nd. She also referenced a direction of additional advertising, a map project that Peabody Main Streets will be doing with the city and downtown, the pop-up children's museum, the Lease It Local program, which has given out $27,000 in grants, and Councilor Gould, Councilor McGinn, Councilor Charist, and Councilor Gravello spoke glowingly of the program and the work that they've completed over the last several years. Also, Councilor Manning Martin had mentioned a great idea about beautifying some of the underpasses or overpasses, we'll call them, around the city. And she mentioned one in particular on Lowell Street that we may be able to do a mural on the inside of that overpass to beautify it. And all councils were in attendance. It's a report of progress. Thank you, councilors. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Matsoulis.
I have no motions, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move to receive item 8E. It's a letter from Minas Dakos, a thank you letter for serving on the liquor licensing board for the city of Peabody. I just wanted to also say thank you to Minnie for all his years of service. As it was, Barry Sinowitz was replacing him right now, and Minnie used to call my office quite a bit. My staff was pretty upset to hear that he was retiring because he was a fun guy when he would call regarding all of his questions that he had. He took the job very seriously, so I just wanted to count that out and receive that letter from him. And then I have no other motions tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
On the motion, all in favor? Councilor Matsoulis.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was going to take that item, but the councilor beat me to it. Minnie's a friend of mine. He's a good fella. He's been on the licensing board for over 20 years. Also, Mr. Chairman, his family goes back in the city to the 1900s. His father and uncle owned the Pan Hellenic, which was on Walnut Street. It was a restaurant that went up to, the license went up to Spinelli's. They were a family that took care of a lot of people back during the Depression. I've heard a lot of talk that Mr. Dacos, the father, owned the grocery store and took care of a lot of people in the neighborhood. And people have talked about that for years. And Minnie Dacus has been a chairman of the Housing Authority for 47 years. And that's quite a commitment. All the time he's put into it, and I feel that the city council ought to send him a letter of recognition for the service and time that he's put into the city. So moved. Thank you.
On the motion to receive from Councilor Melville, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. In reference to Councilor Matsoulis's motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. No motions, but did want to say thank you to the Water Department and DPS. We had a water pipe break on Antrim Road, and they came out early morning, and they were there till almost 6 o'clock tonight working on it and fixing it, so thank you to them.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8J and set up a public hearing. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 9C and set up a public hearing. So moved.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. No further motions.
Councilman McGinn, would you like to just state the date of the public hearing for item 8J?
Sure.
I believe we
Yeah,
said February 28th.
on the motion, that application stipulates that it's subject to a ZBA decision, and that hearing is at the end of January, so we really can't act on it until after the ZBA process is completed. That being the case, I believe we have a pretty full agenda on the 14th, so I would stipulate February 28th on the motion, Mr. President. I'd add that to the motion.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under suspension of the rules, motion to receive and approve item 9A. All papers in order.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make another motion and ask the Conservation Commission their opinion on placing a black mesh-type barrier on the bottom of the half guardrail with stakes in the ground surrounding Crystal Lake to prevent any debris or runoff going into Crystal Lake. So moved.
All in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
No further motions, Mr. Chairman.
Council Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to release all executive session minutes for the past year where the confidential nature of the meetings has expired.
All in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further motions?
Council Sasslaw.
Thank you. Under suspension rules, motion to receive item 8A and approve all papers being in order.
All in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
I'd like to make a motion to receive item 8B, approve the transfer all papers being in order.
All in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Suspension rules, I'd like to receive item 8H, and I'd like to request that the city clerk send out a copy of this letter to the business Elite Auto at 153 Newberry Street so that they get a copy of this that was submitted to the council.
All in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
And I just wanted to, you know, a lot of times on social media, as you folks know, sometimes they'll come up and they'll remind you of something. And something very significant, I think, happened that came up in my feed, and many people are aware of it. I wanted to acknowledge and celebrate the life of someone who made a huge impact, not just in Peabody, but in the world. And as many of you know, we're the world headquarters of Progeria Foundation. In the face of that foundation was a gentleman by the name of Sam Burns, the nephew of Audrey Gordon, who's the director of that worldwide organization. And today is the anniversary of Sam's passing. And I just mention it because sometimes we forget, but if you ever have a chance and you go and you Google Sam Burns TED Talk, Life According to Sam HBO, spend a few minutes, watch it, listen to it, and I think it'll give you a different perspective on the world. He was a phenomenal human being who can teach many of us life lessons as a person who died way before his time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Trust.
Thank you. I'd like to move to receive 8C, and on that communication to recognize what Captain Richards has recommending about the 25 miles an hour and the signs, and to have that completed, and also to keep this on the table. I met with him about the no parking, had a chance to actually stand on the driveway and look at how the car would be coming out onto the street. He was a little bit misunderstanding what I was talking about. It was not the width of the road, but it was the angle of the driveway and the slope. He's coming back with a recommendation, so I would like to have what he has sent to us completed, but also keep it on the table for the new recommendation. So move.
All in favor, any opposed, to vote.
And I'd like to, just as a point of information with Councilor McGinn on Russell, they had sent me an email. There was 5 things they had on the list of completion by December 31st. They had 2 of them that was completed, and the other 3 has not been completed, but looking to be done by next week. And the reason why was the delivery of materials. The 2 that was completed is an upgrade on the odor system and the wastewater to neutralize the odor as we've met before. And the other one they did complete was refreshing and remixing of the biofilters, the fuselage and the line building. That was the building right out front that most of us have visited. So just an FYI with Councilor McGinn, they are coming back in. I know they're having a meeting. Hopefully they contacted you as they said they were with the Board of Health to go over the rest of them. And the other 3 that they looking to have complete by next week was changing the fixed cover to a permanent cover on the dissolving air flotation pit. I'm not really sure exactly what the fixed cover and a permanent cover, the difference. I think it's harder and they're able to walk on, if I remember correctly. Number 2 was changing the fixed cover to the permanent cover on the equalizer tank. And number 3 was adding air curtains to the building out front where the trucks come out and take the, like the dumpster styles of materials out. I will hopefully be speaking to them again next week and let you know a little bit more information of the completion of the 3 of those. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. Councilor Gould.
No motions, Mr. President.
Councilor Gravel.
Under suspension of rules, move to receive item, did we receive it already, 7A? Receive item 7A and place it in the Finance Committee.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
No further motions.
I just have one motion, and that was in reference to the Public Services Subcommittee we had about a month ago where we asked the Public Services Director to provide us with some information regarding snow contract removal and contact numbers. And I don't know if anybody received that book, but I didn't receive it. So I'd just like to make a motion to remind the Public Services Director to provide the council with the updated list of contacts, ward command captains for DPS, as well as a list of outside contractors in the areas they cover. With that, on the vote, on the motion, all in favor, any opposed? To vote. Councilor Mitsoulas, item 8D, could you receive that and refer it to your 26 Holly Street zoning?
Mr. Chairman.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Mitsoulas, also item 8F is yours.
Motion to receive and refer to public safety.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Mitsoulas, item 8G also. That's yours, I believe, special permit.
Motion to receive and set up a special hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Mitsoulas. On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Melville, can you receive item 8I for us?
Move to receive item 8I.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gravel, can you take us home with starting with item 9B?
Taxi limousine driver's license. Shane Kieran, license 52. Michelle Callahan, license 53. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers to be in order.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Item 9D is next.
9D or 9C?
C's already been done. D, E, and F we need.
Got it. Class 2 motor vehicle license, 2019 renewal, 222 Newberry Motors, 222 Newberry Street, Allen's Auto Trim, 27 Holly Street, American Auto Export, 484 Lowell. Auto Graphics and Sales, 220B Newberry Street, Auto Transportation of New England Rear, 55 Linfield Street, Bill's Auto Sales, 256 Newbury Street, DNR Auto, 100 Bernie Street, Elite Motors Cars, 93 Lynn Street, Legacy Auto Sales, 92 Foster Street, Louis BMW, 260 Newbury Street, Myers Towing Inc., 161 to 163 Washington Street, North Shore Auto Sales, 218 Newbury Street, Prestige Motors, 288 Newbury Street, R&A Automotive, 26 Lake Street, Tri-City Services, 55R Walnut Street. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Entertainment License 2019 renewal, Carrabba's Italian Grill, 1A Newbury Street, Greg's Lounge, 50 Walnut Street, Legal Seafoods, 210 Andover Street, Sylvan Street Grill, 12 Sylvan Street. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
General licenses 2019 renewal, Inholders license, Spring Hill Suites, Marriott, 43 Newbury Street, limousine license, Michael's Limousine, 161 Lynn Street, limousines license, Tri-City Services, 55R Walnut Street, taxi license, Sunshine Taxi, 153 Newbury Street, taxi license, Tri-City Services, 55R Walnut Street. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Charest?
Thank you. Just on the motions that was made to receive materials into Public Services Subcommittee, if Tim, once you receive that, can you set up a meeting after we receive all the information that was requested to go into Public Service and set up a meeting on the off night? Yes. I'm being new chair of that. I'd just like to wrap up anything that came in and anything that's been there. I know there's only one item, I believe, that's in the committee as right now, but I know there was a couple requests for information. So as soon as that information comes in, can you set up a meeting, and it can be on an off night? Thank you. Thank you, President.
Councilor Melville, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Hold on. I'd like to make
One- Councilor Gravel.
one more motion, if I could. We had originally set up the ad hoc committee on municipal consolidation and efficiency back several years ago, and we had meetings that were planned, and we executed the meetings, but I don't think there's no longer a need for this ad hoc committee. So under the rules, the president can dissolve it. So my motion is to request the president to dissolve the ad hoc committee on municipal consolidation and efficiency.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
It's a vote. Meeting adjourned.